Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you all for coming to our workshop today. The title is... Yeah, we're going to get started now. I know it was really hard there was no break between the last workshop and this workshop, so everybody's kind of still transitioning, I think. The title of our workshop today is Building Resilience, the Art of Bouncing Forward. Now, if some of you heard the word bouncing and thought, hey, this must be a workshop about basketball skills, well, I'm here to tell you, you're in the wrong place. When I was thinking about the title for this workshop, too far. Thank you. I don't think I introduced myself, sorry. My name is Carole Starr, and I am a 14-year brain injury survivor. And when I was thinking about the original title for this workshop, at first I thought about resilience, the art of bouncing back. But the more that I thought about it, the more bouncing back really didn't seem to be the right title. Because for me, my brain injury, it was pretty much like a cleaver that just cut right through my life, creating this deep divide of before and after. There really was no going back to who I was before. All I could do is move forward with this new person that I am now. And I can honestly tell you that finding my own inner resilience and coming to terms with my injury has really been one of the biggest accomplishments of my life. Especially because I really did not think that I could do this, especially in those first few years. So that's why bouncing forward is part of the title, because that's what we're focusing on, moving forward after brain injury. I am joined today by 3 of my colleagues from Brain Injury Voices. So I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me now? My name is Marc. I'm a 7-year brain injury survivor.
My name is Bethany Bryan, and I was in a car accident May 20th, 2011, and had I not been in the car accident, I would not have found out that I had a brain tumor. Had I not found out, I wouldn't be here today because I was scheduled to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, and I wouldn't have made it off the mountain alive. And I had brain surgery September 15th, 2011.
My name is Paula Sparks, and I had a stroke 7 years ago.
So now I want to find out who all of you are. I just want to take a quick poll. So how many in this room are survivors? How many family members? And how many professionals? All right, good. So we get a good mix. How many of you have been through a situation where you needed to be resilient and bounce forward? Most people? Yeah. Obviously, brain injury is a big one, the reason we're kind of all here. But most of us in life go through a death in the family, a divorce, a loss of some kind, another health challenge. All of those things require us to be resilient. The good news is that resilience is indeed a skill that can be learned. Yes, some people are actually naturally born more resilient than others, but we can learn to be better at it, which is really good, because otherwise there'd be pretty much no point in this workshop. We've designed this workshop to be interactive. That's why I asked everybody to kind of push up a little bit. We really want to get participation from you, the audience. And the more that you participate, I think the more that you can get out of our workshop today. We have a series of resilience exercises that we'll be doing. Paula, what happened to the handout? Where'd they go?
They've got them.
Yeah, Sam, can you pass the handouts around? I know some people have them. We've designed a series of exercises about resilience, designed to help all of us boost our inner strength. What's going to happen is the panel is going to give their answers to the questions first, and then I'm going to open up to the audience and ask you for some of your thoughts on the questions. So, in some ways, you could kind of look at this workshop as a workout. I even went so far as to Google, does building resilience actually burn calories? I couldn't find an answer to that particular question. So there's been a lot of research done on resilience. I think it was back in January, February, I happened to come across an article about resilience that summarizes 5 key points, key actions that anybody can take to build their resilience. I looked at that article and said, ha, that's a workshop. There's a link to that article on the bibliography that's part of your little packet there if you want to check it out at another time. So the article talks about our 5 points to build our resilience. And they are, number 1, pumping up our positivity, basically finding what's good and what's bad, living to learn, viewing what's happened to us as a teacher, opening our hearts by giving to others and expressing gratitude for what we have, hanging on to humor, finding what's funny in the situation, and taking care of ourselves, which means that both our physical, mental, as well as emotional well-being. Resilience is indeed like a muscle. So like I said, today is going to be a kind of a workout. And having strong resilience can really help you when you're going through a rough time, whether it be brain injury or something else. An example from my own life is my mother passed away 3 years ago now. And in all honesty, the resilience that I developed after the brain injury helped me tremendously in coping with the grief that I felt after she passed away. So, moving on to our first point, pumping up our positivity. We know that life challenges, whether they be brain injury or other things, pretty much suck. Pumping up our positivity doesn't mean ignoring all of the crappy stuff that any awful life event brings. Because we all know the challenges of brain injury or other challenges are definitely very, very real. Resilience means that we can hold 2 ideas in our hands at the same time. Yeah, this absolutely sucks, and we know that it sucks. But, on the other hand, we can say that there are also silver linings, good things that have come out of this life event, whether it be brain injury or something else. So that's our first resilience exercise. Is thinking about positives that have come, if you're a brain injury survivor, from your brain injury, if you don't have a brain injury, from some other challenge that you faced. I'm going to ask the panel first to give some examples that they have, and then I'll open it up and get your opinions. So Marc.
I've changed from more of a type A, high-strung person to type B, more laid back. I've said it's hard to see the world when you're going 100 miles an hour. So I go about 10 now. Trying to be more patient with myself and with others. And I'm really trying to take the time to enjoy the world around me. Stop and smell the roses.
And he pretty much said what I was going to say.
I should have sat here.
I know, and I pleased you that. What I went through was very humbling. I am the newest in our group of brain injury voices, and not saying that it's fair that what a lot went through, but a lot of the people in group, they've been retired or were retiring. They had a nice long career. Not saying that 41 is very young or old, but I was just getting a start in life, so to speak, compared to, so it's very humbling. I was a personal trainer, I also traveled the world, and I was a competitive athlete, and all of that was just instantly stopped. But it was very humbling, and I learned to appreciate the smaller things, and not even really things. The one thing that this injury has given me is time, a lot of time that I would have been spent working, or just doing things that just anything else that I really should have been doing. I spend time with friends now, appreciate time with relatives. I've been fortunate enough to have extra time that I wouldn't have had with some people that aren't with me anymore. And you have to really appreciate small things.
Well, there are a couple of things. One in particular that was positive and seems maybe a little strange, and I've said it before, is that because of what happened to me and how ill I was, I got an opportunity to see and hear how people felt about me, that things that aren't ordinarily said until someone has passed away. I guess the bad things they wouldn't come forward and say anyways, but that it was just kind of nice, because the people you don't know you may have touched in your life came forward and spent some time with me. Another thing, though, that has really come out of Business Positive is I have met a lot of people that I would never let an opportunity to meet. Now, granted, none of us would have chosen to have met under these circumstances. However, an amazing wide circle of new acquaintances and friends, which I'm really pleased about.
So now I want to open it up to all of you. This is where the interaction part comes in. So what are some positives that have come for you from brain injury or from another life challenge? Sam's going to be on microphone. Yeah, thank you.
Well, I think what immediately came to mind mirrors a lot of what you all said already, but my stroke and the support I received following my stroke really reinforced a lot of positive things I already had in my life, and that stayed with me despite losing a lot of what I felt I'd lost.
I'm 15 years suffering from sobriety. 15 years sober now. That's horrible. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Can you hear me? Okay. I find that sometimes when I stumble on words or I'm at a loss and I get embarrassed, now I don't have to just say that I'm blonde. Now I can say I'm brain damaged too. I can get away with it, and the humor factor is just there, and it, you know, it dissolves and resolves a lot of situations, and you know, I'm probably going to get to use that for a long time. So as long as the die holds up.
I think that one of the positive things for me is the gratitude that I have. I'm fairly new into my brain injury. It just happened in January, but I've been able to pool my resources and find amazing doctors, amazing therapists and support groups. So I just have an extreme gratitude for all of that.
We get time for one more. Next one, Karen.
I am more grateful than ever for my extremely supportive spouse, Ross, who's doing the videotaping here. And I have learned, as part of my therapy, I learned to meditate and to relax, which is something I've always wanted to do. And I can finally do it now that my brain doesn't work as it used to. So I'm very grateful for that. And I'm also very thankful that I have found out who my friends are, and I've made many really good new friends.
We're glad for Ross, too.
Thank you. So moving on to point number 2. Living to learn. Every situation provides us with an opportunity to learn something. My own personal belief is that the more challenging the situation, the more opportunity it provides us for deep, life-changing kind of learning. But to get to the place where we can learn what's happened to us, sometimes we have to change the way that we talk to ourselves. How many people in this room have asked themselves, why did this happen to me? What did I do to deserve this? Those are really common questions to ask, especially when you're early on. But how do you feel about yourself when you ask, why did this happen to me? What did I do to deserve this? It doesn't bring good feelings, does it? So the trick about living to learn is changing that question to, what does this situation have to teach me? When you can do that, that helps you to bounce forward. Because resilience is about acknowledging what is, and then living in the present and looking to the future. It does mean changing that question of, why did this happen to me, to what does this have to teach me? So that's the next question that we're going to focus on in terms of resilience is, what has brain injury or some other life challenge taught you? It could be about yourself, about other people, about life in general. Let's start with our panel.
I found through this experience that I am an incredibly strong-willed person with a lot of determination. That I need to look at all the angles before I make a decision. I mentioned this prior, but I think it's important to have more patience with myself and those around me. To communicate how I feel and what's going on for me emotionally, physically, spiritually. That cuts down on the guesswork. Do not assume anything.
I also found that if I could get through this, I could get through anything. I was always a physically strong person, being an athlete, as some of you will know, but emotionally and just mentally. But part of being strong that I'm just now, even just starting to grasp, is that it's okay to ask for help. And I've never done that before. I've always been the one to help people, and it's humbling, sometimes humiliating, but it really isn't. It takes a strong person to do that, and I've learned that through group, and it's really important.
Well, I too, I think I've learned to ask for help, because I was always one that thought I didn't want to make a big deal out of anything. I did a lot of things, but I didn't want anyone to make a big fuss about it. Now I'm learning if I want to still do some of those things, I may have to make a little fuss and ask for some help. I've learned to, although I thought myself fairly tolerant, but when I'm on the road and I'm getting angry at that guy in front of me going so slow or doing something really stupid, I don't think that way so much anymore. I think there may be a reason behind what's going on with that person, whatever their life might be, so I think more about those kinds of things. And for me, and although I know there are people in this room who know me who would disagree, I've learned to slow down a little and enjoy the ride. And I'm trying to impress that upon some other friends of mine who are still living in the quote-unquote normal world and driving themselves crazy.
So I want to open it up to all of you. So what has brain injury taught you? Ellen's got something first.
One of the struggles I had was I've been a pretty fast-paced person myself and always succeeded by pushing through things and being stubborn, I guess. So learning to let go and learning to be patient with myself, as some of you all said. And then as about others, that was a struggle. I've never asked for help before. Now learning to ask for help and be patient. And everyone around you needs reminders. They can't read how you're feeling. You need to tell them and communicate and ask them to be patient and explain. And it may take 10, 15 times, and hopefully they'll get that understanding. And also naps are really good.
Yes, we love naps. I saw other hands. Karen, did you have something? Can't leave you out this time.
I wanted to say that I don't know who said they have trouble speaking. I have trouble speaking, but everybody's been patient with me. And that I have a patient stone for me. And I need
Karen, microphone.
I need to accept help and accept rides, because I don't have a car, and just accept. And that is hard for me too, because I, like everybody else, was the giver before. And the one woman that died, she said to me, "Who will take care of you?" I said, "Nothing will happen to me." Well, here I am with a stroke.
Anybody else have anything that they've learned from brain injury?
Well, pre-injury, I was very independent and went wherever I wanted, did whatever I wanted, or pretty much. And now I find that, again, humility plays a big role. I have to ask for help, and I've also found out that my husband has a lot more patience than I ever thought he'd have, because he puts up with me, and I know I'm not the easiest person to live with, and especially on the down days, and he's done tremendously, and I wouldn't be here without him. And that everything that is sent to you is sent for a reason. It's a learning curve, and it's just what is the reason for yours, and sometimes thinking about it, meditating on it, helps open some doors and helps you see the light.
There's no way to strengthen the power in family. Family first.
Yep. All right, I'm gonna keep moving us along. I'll get you the next one. So our third point, in terms of resilience, I love this guy, is opening our heart. As a species, we human beings are meant to be connected to one another. Most of us in this room know that any life challenge, brain injury in particular, can be really, really isolating. I know after my own injury, I felt very, very alone for a long time, like nobody could possibly understand what it was that I was going through. After a major life event, a lot of times we have to find new ways to connect, to reach out to people, because maybe the old ways, maybe they don't work so well anymore. So there are two pieces to connecting to others: being of service to others, giving, and also being grateful for what you have. Some people have already touched a little bit on gratitude. Acts of service, giving to others, doesn't have to be really big. It can be really, really small. When I first started out, I made jewelry for other people. That was what I could do. I couldn't do a lot, but I could make jewelry. And I felt like I could give to my family and friends in that way, and then it grew from there. And learning to be grateful for even the smallest of things can really change how we look at our lives and what's happened to us. So our third exercise is, how have you been, or can you be, of service to others? Let me flip it around. Paula, do you want to go first?
I've always been big into volunteering and helping people out, so that's sort of not a new thing. But I've had to change a little bit what that volunteering looks like. Since I had my stroke, one of the things that I did was for a while I volunteered as an ESL tutor, which was actually very interesting because my language challenges and my students' challenges sort of work together, interestingly, as that may be. But my biggest service that I'm doing now is my work here with Voices, volunteering with the art group that Hillary leads, Hillary who spoke in the earlier workshop, with the support group and with this group.
Kind of like Paula, I was into volunteering a lot too. I was top fundraiser for 10 years at a local animal shelter, and which was actually what I was going to be doing when I was supposed to be climbing Kilimanjaro. And now they've lassoed me into my fundraising funds for brain injury voices. But I've also learned a lot from group. It was really important for me, and it's having mentors and being able to mentor people that are just going through this, and just being a good listener. Just a lot of people kind of listen to all my woes and my crazy outlandish stories of what happened to me and how I get to this point, but it's like Karen is a good listener right now, but everybody in group is, so
it's really a blessing when you can walk into a hospital room with someone who might have just had a stroke or another traumatic brain injury of some kind, and sit there and say, you know, I kind of know how you feel. Because I was in a car accident 7 years ago, and I have traumatic brain injury. So to be able to be a mentor of sorts, to be able to, as was said, to be able to listen and to share an experience, a positive experience, that there is light at the end of the tunnel, that brain injury is not static, that with neuroplasticity that the brain can evolve and your injury can evolve. By being on this panel today, being able to share our thoughts and feelings, and hearing your thoughts and feelings strengthens all of us. And for me personally, the part music shares in being able to help people. I want to give a big shout out to Musicophilia, Oliver Sacks, about brain injury and the part that music plays in helping. So to be part of Voices, be part of this panel today, and the things that we do as a group, to be able to share our experiences and to help each other, that certainly is a blessing.
So how have you all been of service to others? I already see a hand back there.
I'm hoping that very soon I'll be able to start acting as a peer mentor at New England Rehab, and like Marc was saying, just be able to pass on some common experiences to people who are going through something like what I went through and am going through. The other thing, hopefully people will still be awake by the time the next session starts. I know this is kind of a tough crowd for stamina. But I will be talking about the blog that I started and then continue to maintain, which for me, one of the great things about it has been the opportunity to educate others on what a brain injury can look like, and what one experience at least is like, and just hearing back positively from, I mean, usually it's friends and family, sometimes it's people I just happen upon my blog randomly, and especially I've heard from occupational and physical therapists who don't often get sort of the insight from their patients what the experience is actually like, and they seem to appreciate hearing my emotional and psychological journey as well.
There are a lot of ways to be of service to people, whether it be as a peer mentor, like I said, doing jewelry. Sometimes it was just doing the dishes for my family. It was my way of being of service. It all depended on where I was in my brain and what I could do.
I just have to say something too, that I'm really impressed by how many doctors and clinicians are here today, because we're used to dealing with our group, and we're 100% run by survivors. The founders and all of us are survivors. But where I've been, I actually had brain surgery, all had a whole bunch of, it's just very important, I think, because it's not for all of us, it's not a visible injury. And we joke about, oh, you look great, you look fine. Well, if you could be inside, like most of us are in anywhere from excruciating agony right now, like myself, to just a whole bunch of different things. And it's so great. I was fortunate enough to have really good doctors and neurosurgeons that still are with me today. So I just want to thank all of you that are really here to.
That leads us into gratitude, because this is Carole moving us along. Because that is the second part of opening our hearts. The first part is being grateful for what we have. The second part is, the first part is being of service to others. The second part is being grateful for what we have. And sometimes when things seem really crappy, it's really hard to find things to be grateful for. Just want to ask, oh, good, I've gone too far. This keyboard is very sensitive. Just any things that you guys have been grateful for quickly, as I want to keep moving us along.
being alive, for the possibilities that encompasses, to be able to perform my work. I'm a painting contractor and I'm a professional musician, to be able to go out and play music. Being here to take part in this program today, and most of all, I have a new grandson, Rowan Allister, and I look forward to loving him and teaching him.
In addition to being grateful for Brain Injury Voices and for Brain Group, just again, it sounds cliche and simple, but just to be alive, because a lot of us shouldn't be here. And I'm definitely grateful for that. Very grateful that the Red Sox are back in. But back to us, really.
Watch out.
Don't be a star.
It doesn't matter what you're grateful for as long as it's something.
And just to all like the new friends that I've made through this that I wouldn't have met without the injury.
Actually, I always find this question hard. What are you grateful for? 3 things this week. It's not that I'm not grateful, but naming those things, and on my list that I made, I didn't mention anything that my husband has done, which is a million things that I don't even think about, But one of the things I'm really grateful for this week is that last week I spent a long weekend with a friend in New York. And what's unusual about that is that she and I always used to get together. She lives in Pennsylvania. And this is the first time I was able to drive that distance myself. It's a 5-hour drive. I've done some other long, but not that long. I must say by the time the 4th day was done together, she and I both were getting a little testy. We had enough of each other, even though we loved each other to pieces. When I got home, she had sent me a thank you note for going with her. So I guess we were okay together. So that's one thing I'm really thankful for, because that meant a lot to me. It's, once again, resuming some of those things that I've done before. I took a hooping class, and it's a wonderful exercise. I think almost anybody can do it, except if you've really got balance issues, don't try it. No, I won't demonstrate. But, and the class ended this week, and I'm thankful that the instructor was a really wonderful, non-judgmental person. I explained to her that I had some issues, and she was fine with everything. So that's another thing I was really thankful for.
What I hear is honestly, it does not matter what it is that we're grateful for. It is the act of being grateful for something that helps us to develop resilience. So moving on to our 4th point, hanging on to humor.
There he is.
We'll start with
Yes, I know. I like him too. Mark Twain said, humor is tragedy plus time. I guess that's true for a lot of us. Now, many of you know Beth Bryant. When I first met her, oh goodness, probably 12 years ago or so, I listened to her laugh about her brain injury symptoms. I thought that was like practically sacrilege. How in the world can she laugh about having a brain injury? This is serious business. I do not think that I would ever laugh about my own brain injury. But yes, now I do. Many of you who know me know that fatigue has been an ongoing struggle for me, and that I have to rest a lot. So one day I was at one of my doctor's appointments, and he asked me how I was doing. And I told him that I napped a lot. I said, I've had so much beauty sleep that I just know one of these mornings I'm going to wake up as a supermodel. I also never thought I'd say this, but I have napped in so many odd places over the last 14 years that you could say I sleep around. It takes time.
It's Oprah.
It takes time to move from crying about brain injury to being able to laugh about brain injury. But eventually, I think we can all get to the point where we can laugh about what's happened. In the support group that Voices runs, we talk a great deal about choosing to be amused, choosing to find what's funny in the situation. That when we can do that, we laugh, it actually reduces our stress, both body and mind, because when we laugh, we can heal. So our panel might have a few amusing anecdotes of their own. I want to let them share those.
Oh, so many stories, so little time. Yeah, right. It's kind of like, I started getting AARP recently. And,
That's fine.
And, yeah, well, we're working into it. But it's kind of like, where does just being 62 and brain injury kind of overlap, right? And that's what my wife tells me, because, you know, I don't think that's your brain injury. I think that's you just being 62. But, you know, humor is my own struggle with coming out of the fog. Humor is a great way to overcome many obstacles, isn't it? I mean, the depression, anxiety, and sometimes the helplessness we feel of the situation that we're in. Not to mention where I left my brain today. We often laugh with Carole, as she calls her brain injury, Brain Hilda. And we all know that when Brain Hilda's come, that
Carole's done.
Carole's done for the day. But really, humor is such a huge part of our growing with brain injury. It just helps us to move on. And speaking of moving on,
I'm kind of in Carole's position where I still am not able to let this be as funny to me as a lot of you and a lot of my peers here have been. I'm a funny person pre-surgery, and I find humor great, but I take things a little bit to heart still when people might joke about my brain injury. I was strawberry blonde. I was, let's just say, a little bit blonder for a while. So I would, joke that just, the stupid blonde jokes, but now I have an eternal excuse, and it's brain injury. So I'm getting there, but it's like Carole said, it took her a while as to be able to laugh at yourself, and I'm learning, and these guys are helping.
But you send very funny text.
Oh, well, that's different. So.
I can't really remember funny stories as a result of the brain injury, except for one thing that happens to me all the time, and I've checked, it's not today, and that is that I'm always putting my shirt on backwards. No matter how many times I check the tags, I put my shirts on backwards. I usually catch it, but one day I actually went out, my shirt was on backwards, and I thought, why has nobody told me that my shirt looks funky way up around my neck where it doesn't belong?
Do any of you? So all right, we got funny stories.
This has to do with Karen. Because ever since my head injury, I've had a tough time with laughing and more on crying, same with Carole and Bethany. But I had a challenge. I've always been afraid of water. So I was finally talked in to go kayaking. So I did that this summer. And it was the best summer ever, because in the car with Ron and Priscilla and Karen, we were laughing so hard one day on leaving there. It was pouring that Ron had to pull over the side of the road, and all of us were just laughing so hard we were crying. And every time I'm with this one, I can't help but not laugh. And I would take her anywhere. I'm thankful for all of these guys. All these guys have saved me.
Nice example of how laughing can help.
So I think I can do Paula's putting her clothes on backwards one better. Since my stroke, I've had very limited use of my left arm and hand. And a couple of years ago, I went to my 20th college reunion, stayed in a dorm during that time. For some reason, in the dorm, they had a very nice, accessible shower with a fold-down bench and all the trimmings. So I was excited to take a shower in a real dorm bathroom, but neglected to bring a change of clothes into the bathroom with me, and discovered that putting a towel around your waist with one hand is very difficult. So that turned into my one college streaking, where I had to very slowly streak back down the hallway to my room.
That's a great great story, thank you. So I'm gonna move us now then, oh, I got one more hand back there. Sir, yeah, it's Ralph.
Just for people's information, I had 2 strokes and left in the bed stay for quite a while. I have fun now with people I know my age. I tell them, I know you're slowing down all the time, but I can find, I can do things now I haven't been able to do in years.
Yes, I always say, by about the time all of my friends are ready to retire, I'm probably gonna be ready to go back to work. It really wasn't one of my goals to beat my parents to Medicare, but that's kind of what happened. So our final point of resilience is taking care of ourselves. And that means doing things that support our physical, mental, and emotional health. Self-care is particularly important and really, really difficult. I think Hillary, the last one, was talking a little bit about self-care and how difficult that was and how easy it is to let that piece go. But it is really a crucial part of being resilient, especially with brain injury, because our energy systems are already compromised on a daily basis. So the energy that we put into taking care of ourselves is going to come back to us threefold. It's important to have strategies to know how are we going to take care of ourselves with brain injury. So for time's sake, I think I'm just going to ask the panel just to talk a little bit about how do you take care of yourself?
It's really important to get enough rest each day. For me, but doing that, I call it checking my reserves. I use the gas tank metaphor. When I first had my brain injury, this neuropsych gentleman said, "Mark, I bet you were a guy who had 2 gas tanks, and they were full all the time." He says, "How many do you have now?" I said, "1. "And how much do you have?" And he says, "It's pretty empty." So it's kind of like planning not to fail. If I know that my reserves are really low, am I going to cram in a lot that day? Well, I hope not to. Sometimes I can't help it. But that's my thing, is making sure that I'm trying to plan my day around how much energy I have, not trying to pack too much into it. And a part of that is knowing when to say no.
I actually have had to make like a whiteboard for myself. Like I'm teaching a class to myself, or like when you're a kid teaching your stuffed animals. If it does not get written down, it does not get done. And it seems like even the simplest things. Brushing your teeth, getting enough food, getting enough water, and that was tough for me to deal with, where I never had to deal with that before. And like you said about running on reserves, another thing that's important for a lot of us is kind of weighing the benefits of what we might be able to do for the day. Like today, we're here, some of us drove 20 minutes, some of us drove an hour, and we've been here listening, talking. I will not be able to function for 2 days, but it's worth it. Would it be worth it me driving a couple hours to go to Boston shopping? Maybe, if there was good sales. Well, the restaurants, yes, of course. So Marc could have tickets, we're not. But trying to weigh what's worth it to you. And that's been really hard. I have always been a go-getter, and it's hard for me not to be able to do the things I used to do simply, that I never even thought about, and having to rationalize that I can't do everything that I want to do. And I'm not at the point where I can accept that yet, so it's getting to what can be done.
Well, for me, oftentimes, I have to talk to myself, to remind myself of things. Hopefully I don't talk out loud too much, because I've seen some people doing that and think but, and that I find is helpful, because when I talk to myself, then I can really realize when I need some downtime. Taking time out for me, I don't have to nap the way a lot of people do have to nap, but I do have to get to a point and say, okay, I'm just going to sit for 15 minutes and do nothing. Or I've discovered that my fancy little funny phone that I just bought that can do everything is wonderful, because I can veg out with that. So that, reminding myself to just sit and take the few minutes to do those sort of things is really important. And pre-stroke, my mantra was shop till you drop. Now that didn't mean I bought a lot of things, but I did love to check out every store and everything and whatnot. And I still like to do that, but that can be my nemesis as well, because as you know, all of the stimulus that's around. So I have to plan when those are good days to do that shop till you drop thing.
Those are great self-care strategies. And all of us, over time, we learn the best way to take care of our own brain injuries. So those are our 5 points to resilience. So I just want to ask, does anybody here have one specific thing that you might like to do to build your resilience? Some action that you would like to commit to?
What I've learned through this whole process with my brain injury is that as a person that multitasked and was at the head of the class in a lot of things I did, was to finally learn one day from somebody here was to set goals. I start out with a goal and I accomplish it, and it just makes me feel as though if anything else went wrong today, that goal was accomplished, and that works for me. Plus, I'm 62 and got retired. That was the goal.
Yeah. Does anybody else have anything that they would like to do to increase their resilience?
If you had asked me a couple of months ago, I would have told you to return to work. Now I need to just build my resilience. I've always volunteered at Preble Street Resource Center, and I used to volunteer in the soup kitchen. And the stimuli in that situation is just way too much now. So I work in a clothing closet at Preble Street Resource Center where I'm locked away from everybody, and I just work around sorting clothes and stuff. So my goal is to be able to at least do a day a month back in the soup kitchen, because I like the action, but I just can't take it. So that's my goal.
Well, I encourage all of you, as you look over these materials, to think about what is something specific that I can do to build my own resilience. And we wanted to end today with something a little bit relaxing, because the research states that some specific strategies that really work well for building resilience are taking breaks, which we're going to be doing in a few minutes, getting outside, which I guess we could do in a few minutes, and spending time with people you enjoy, which hopefully we all are, and relaxing. So we're going to focus on the relaxing part. So we're going to end our workshop today with a 3-minute guided meditation. Some of you have already talked about meditation as being something that helps you. So with that, we're going to try that. Just something to get you in a good space to go forward with the rest of the conference. So in order to avoid feedback, I'm going to turn this mic off and turn the next one on and hope for the best. A good sign.
Begin by finding a comfortable seated position, one that reflects a sense of wakefulness and presence. Noticing any sensations in the body, what is present now in the face, neck, shoulders, in the chest and abdomen. Without trying to change anything, just noticing, observing what's here. And now, Getting familiar with the activity of the mind in this present moment. Where is the mind and what is it up to? Is it in the past? The future? What thoughts and feelings are passing through the mind right now? And just being open to whatever arises. Now directing your attention to the fact that you are breathing. Becoming aware of the part of the body where you experience the sensations of breath most vividly. Noticing each inhalation and each exhalation. Trying to be aware of what is happening in this breath, in this moment. And this moment. And now, once again, expanding your awareness to the body as a whole. Noticing all sensations that arise in the body at this moment. Experiencing the whole body sitting, breathing. Perhaps experiencing this as a sense of spaciousness and openness. And bringing this feeling with you as you go about the activities of the rest of your day.
I want to thank all of you for being part of this workshop this morning, and I encourage everyone to work on increasing your resilience. And don't forget that on the table there are some bouncy balls. Because we were bouncing forward, we'd have bouncy balls as a parting gift. And they all have resilience quotes attached to them.